Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so happy to be here. And let's give it up for this amazing fireball preacher here, Reverend Norman Fong. Come on, let's just show your love for him. As Norman said, I am the West Coast Field Director for Reverend Jackson. I oversee our Silicon Valley and Bay Area office as well, and all of our work here in Northern California and along the coast. And we're just so excited to be here. Reverend Jackson wanted to come back to Chinatown. He has come to the Bay Area over the years a lot. He's done many events in Silicon Valley, and we've done corporate events, and we've done things with the Warriors, and we've done all kinds of activity. But for this very special trip, he said he wanted everything to be back home in Chinatown. So we were glad to be here. Some of you were there last night as he was sharing many of the stories, and many of the people that were there last night were a part of the history of why this is important. And for those of you who missed last night, let me just say that 4 decades ago, Reverend Jackson came to this neighborhood because his heart was here. He could feel the pain. He could feel the challenge. He could feel the disrespect that was happening with our Asian brothers and sisters, especially after the killing of Vincent Chin. And he wanted to make sure that if no one else came, he was going to come. If no one else spoke up, he was going to speak up. If no one else was there for you, he wanted to be here. And I'm just grateful because 40 years later, almost 40 years later, he wanted to come back again to show that same kind of love to this community. The whole committee that has worked over the past several weeks, not only Reverend Norman, but Norman Yi and Mabel Teng and Cindy and all of those that have been a part of our planning, our whole idea of solidarity in the struggle was that last summer, the whole globe began to hear about the pain of African Americans, especially after the killing of George Floyd. And we were able to tell our story again about how much racism hurts us. And yet what has happened over the past years as well, particularly under the last presidential administration and then coming into this year, is that our Asian brothers and sisters, especially the elderly, have been treated so unfairly, so violently, and so much racism continues to permeate. And so we decided to connect our two stories and say enough is enough, because we are better together, especially because we love each other. And so as communities, that's why it was so important for us to have this moment here in Chinatown. Listen to all the relevance to this. Not only is it the 39th year commemoration of the killing of Vincent Chin, we're also in the week of Juneteenth, a celebration for the African American community about our liberation from slavery. And so for Reverend Jackson to be here and for him to call together the coalition again, our work has been going on for years around the country. We have offices in Atlanta and in New York and in Washington, D.C., and Detroit, and Los Angeles. We have office here that does a lot of things with the corporate world and with the tech world. But it was so important as we talk about social justice and unity and fairness. This is where we need to be. We needed to not only be in Chinatown, but today we had to leave the beautiful spot we were last night and come here where the people mean the most to Reverend, and that's Cameron House. So we're here at Cameron House today because this place is special to Reverend Jackson. I'm going to turn it over to the speakers in a moment. I'm going to introduce Mabel to come up and kind of give a little more history. But I was so touched listening to Reverend Norman Fong the other day share so many stories about the history of this place. The people that came here looking for love and looking for help and looking for a hand so they could just hold on. And to know that this place and this church community has band together all these years to try to make sure that people were valued, that every life really does matter. It really touched my heart. And then today to be here with you, and Reverend Jackson is so unique. He travels all over the world, even now as almost 80 years old and battling, health challenges. He still believes in so many people coming together to make the coalition right. And so last night it was beautiful in the banquet hall. But when we come to the community, we come to a place like Cameron House, he really gets excited to see the faces of young people. Let's give our young people a hand as well, those that are here. to see the young faces and to see the a little bit older faces and the seasoned faces and those who are maybe older in number but young at heart. This is who Reverend Jackson loves and lives for. So we thank you so much for being here. We're going to have a few remarks from Mabel Teng and the other speakers that are going to share a little of the history of why this gathering today is important and why Reverend Jackson is back again. He's finishing up a few calls. You know, Reverend Jackson is an international icon, and so not only is he back there trying to get a snack, but he's been on 3-4 phone calls because they're calling him from Washington and they're calling him from different places, and so he's going to wrap up momentarily and be out to speak. But I wanted to hear more of these stories myself because I was so touched to hear about how Reverend Jackson worked with the community here and how you all have made such a difference over the years. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so honored to bring up to the microphone a person who has been connected to Reverend Jackson for many, many years. She's introduced him over the years. She has really been a sister to him, and we're really grateful for her organization. She was really the queen bee last night putting our banquet together, but she's also made all of us look good with her organization. Can you all give it up for Miss Mabel Teng as she comes?
Hand for Pastor Bryant. You puffed me up so much. In Chinese, we say, you give me a hat, I couldn't fit. I am really, really humbled to be Reverend Fong's twin today.
Hey, my sister's here, wait.
Norma. It touched my heart to be back at Cameron House. Norman, remember, 1983, we were here almost every week. We came here to arrange for events and to fight for justice for Vincent Chin. The original crew is here today. Friends, you're going to hear from Helen Zia. Helen, would you take a stand? You really, really, the national voice. Hoi Zia, Hoi, thank you for all your work. Henry Dare, we couldn't have done it without you. Henry, thank you. Pam Tao Lee, you were on the street corner every week. And Cindy Ng, holding down the fork. How did we get here today? Well, the most recent story is Norman and I got on the phone in January, and we said, how are we going to commemorate the killing of Vincent Chin this year? Last year, we did an event with the Chinese Six Company. So every year, we do something to learn our lessons and to work together. So we got on the phone, we said we want to do something, and knowing Reverend Jackson is struggling against Parkinson's and is willing to consider coming out here even after a surgery back in spring, we planned this event. And we planned this to be a smaller reunion, and it snowballed into a welcome dinner paying tribute to Reverend Jackson. And immediately after this event, we're going to have a youth chat that is led by Norman Yee, my really, really good friend Norman, and Crystal Chan. Crystal is already working at the Chinese Culture Center, I think, getting ready. But we couldn't have done it without all of you. Tomorrow we're going to have a rally at Portsmouth Square, rounding up a week of solidarity, not just with the Asian community, but with our brothers and sisters in struggle, the indigenous people, workers, Latinx community, Black Lives Matter, the queer community, every stripe of the rainbow, we will welcome on Friday. And I'm just really, really touched to be part of this gathering today. And I want to thank Cameron House, not just because you hosted Reverend Jackson and Mrs. Lily Chin here, but because all the work you have done over the last many, many decades, helping women who were abused, housing, and being a quiet but a forceful part of our solidarity movement. We have tremendous respect for you, Cameron House. Would all the board stand up and be appreciated? Barbara, why don't you lead? Stand up so we can see you. Thank you. Thank you. Norman and I switch our role. He was going to show all the love to Cameron House, and I was going to talk about the history. But I think we switched role today. So I would like to welcome my brother in struggle, someone I have worked with since 1980, someone I adored, I admired, and I respect deeply, the one and only Reverend Norman Fong.
Okay. Thank you, Mabel. There's a everyone has bucket lists, right? This is one of my bucket list dreams. We wanted Reverend Jackson back for the 40th, actually next year, but because of Parkinson's, we had to do it now. And at first, when we talked on the phone with Reverend Jackson, he was enthusiastic. But, and then we're supposed to do the rally at City Hall. He goes, no, it has to be Chinatown. Reverend Jackson is choosing to show his love for Chinatown solidarity, and I could cry. Come on, everyone go, how do you cry? I don't know how do you make, yeah. No, anyway. Those of you who are here, you're very special. A lot of you are part, okay, just raise your hand. If you're in the Cameron House board or staff, raise your hand. Okay, that's one group. Okay, all right. Second group that was involved, the Presbyterian Church in Chinatown, the oldest Chinese church in America. Please raise your hand. Oh, wow, all the way back there. Yeah. CPA, of course, is here, right? But let's get you to raise your hands anyway. Yeah, okay. All right. Today, originally, Reverend Jackson, we're not sure how he's going to feel, but he also wanted public housing residents here. Anybody with public housing residents, raise here. Pinyin 226. Ow, baby. Thank you. Hold on there, maybe. And Reverend Jackson connects it all. Racism is one part, right? But building affordable housing and fighting to protect our housing, that's important, right, Marisha? Yeah. The faith-based community. Any other Presbyterians here or there, wherever? They're okay. Be shy. Okay, Bruce. Anyway, the goal of today is not just to celebrate Cameron House. I'm sorry. It is in some ways, but it's more than that. We're trying to launch a new movement again, the Powerful Rainbow Coalition in a new way. Reverend Jackson said earlier to us, can we start a Rainbow Coalition in Chinatown? And so there is a concrete goal, Reverend Hammond, that we may consider. I'm not going to give too long of a speech because we're supposed to reminisce. We're going to reminisce with the original speakers back in 1983, and all the way from Detroit is Helen Zia. Come on up. Henry Durr. Henry, come on up, both of you. You're going to share the mic here. What are the lessons learned from 1983 to today? Yeah. Oh, Henry wants to go first. Henry first. Okay. Anybody remember this guy? He was on, man, I heard him on NPR or public radio every dang day. I almost got sick of his voice, man. I'm back in the day, all right? Let's welcome Henry Durr.
Good afternoon. Norman hasn't changed one bit. And he still has a lot of hair. I don't have that much. It really is very touching to be back here at Cameron House at this particular moment as we remember the tragic murder of Vincent Chin and the horrific injustice done to him, his mom, and his family, in that the murderers really got away with murder, did not sit one day in jail. In 1982, when this tragedy occurred, I was working at Chinese for Affirmative Action, and we got a news from the folks in Detroit about what the Wayne County judge ruled in this particular case. And we were appalled. And we determined at that time that we would follow closely and follow the lead of the folks in Detroit. We didn't even know Helen, but we knew the group that was formed, I believe, was Americans for Justice. A number of groups in Detroit was JCL, possibly, and others. OCA had come together to form the group. So we tried to follow their lead because we were here in the Bay Area and they were there at the heart of what had happened. So we felt like we wanted to support them, and what could we do? So as soon as they sent the signal that folks should protest, we said, okay, let's do it. Some of you may remember in those days back in the 70s and 80s, whenever we did a protest, we would either do it in person or we would write a protest letter, put it into the mail, take a couple of days for it to arrive at the intended recipient. And we said, gosh, that is not going to work because a judge had already ruled. So we said, let's figure out a way to gather as many voices of protest. So we came up with the idea of sending postcards. We had never done that before. We didn't have the internet, of course. We didn't have change.org or anything like that. So we started a postcard campaign to protest the ruling by the judge. And that was the beginning of getting people informed and engaged in an injustice that did not occur in our city or in our neighborhood, but it was an injustice against a Chinese American man and against an American, against a human being. So we were very happy that we were able to do that to support the efforts in Detroit. But unfortunately, it didn't end there because the murders were still out free. And we then supported efforts led by Detroit and other groups across the country to bring civil rights charges against the two murderers. Even though the civil rights lawsuit against these murders did not turn out the way we would like, we had hoped, it was important that we were engaged. So our word to us today to remember is never give up, stay engaged, because racism and hatred, unfortunately, are deeply rooted in the American DNA. And it's just something that we have to live with and that we must stand up and fight, oppose, and protest and do what we can to stand up against power and injustice in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Helen, are you ready? We want to invite Helen Zia, who was really the key architect of the Vincent Chin legal strategy and led the movement from Detroit. We are so lucky to have Helen. I'm dragging a little bit because we're moving the podium down. As Helen get ready to speak and share lessons, I want to take this opportunity to introduce Hoy Zia again. Hoy was the chair of Asian American for Justice, 1983. Hoy,
You were our boss.
take a stand and be recognized and be loved. With this, I turn it over to Helen Zia.
Hey, thank you, Mabel. Thank you, Reverend Norman Fong. I can't tell you how emotional it is to be here today when in June 1st, 1984, we were here at the Cameron House. I came from Detroit. I was living in Detroit. I had been an auto worker in Detroit. I was laid off with a million other workers in the Midwest then. And just to take some of you back, because I know some of you might not have been even a twinkle in the eye back in 1984. But you know, we didn't have the internet, but also Asian Americans. I mean, we're sitting here in the, state with the largest number of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the country. Back then, AAPI people were less than 1% of the country. In places like Michigan, we were invisible. We were like aliens, and that's not in the citizenship way. We were like aliens from Mars. And when Vincent Chin was killed in 1982 by 2 white auto workers at a time of intense anti-Asian hate, just like today, his killers got off scot-free. And the judge said, these are not the kind of men you send to jail. These 2 white men in a city like Detroit were not the kind of men to send to jail for killing and beating to death an Asian American. And so back then, we're here today in unity. And, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of the lessons are. We're here today in unity, and we came together in 1984 in unity, but back then, unity takes work. And so the idea of even being Asian Americans unified back then did not exist. Back then, when Vincent Chin, a Chinese American, was killed, and it was a time of intense anti-Japan hate, it was not assumed that the Chinese American and the Japanese American community could come together. We actually had to talk it over. We had to say, well, World War II wasn't that long ago. Could our communities really trust each other and work together? But then we all realized Vincent Chin was killed. Vincent Chin could have been any one of us. It could have been any other Asian American. And so we did the work in Detroit with our tiny, tiny different Asian ethnic communities to come together for the first time. And I'll tell you, when the Chinese community came together first, and we actually had a meeting when we were bringing on a Japanese American board member, and we had to practice saying his name, like school kids saying Minoru, Togasaki, because of course Chinese names tend to be one syllable. And it was that elementary for people to come together. And so when the Chinese and Japanese American communities came together, and then the Filipino and Indian and Korean and Vietnamese communities came together, that was the first time in a mass kind of gathering that Asian Americans came together under this umbrella called Asian American. It took work. It really was not that our communities had done a lot together before. And so when we talk about unity and come together today, it really took an effort to even bring the Asian Americans together. And then we also knew in a city like Detroit, in a country like America, Asian Americans were still, even together, still a tiny speck. And we knew that if we wanted to stop the hate and the killing and not have more Vincent Chins killed and mothers like Lily Chin grieving, that we would also have to reach out to other parts of the community. And you know what? the black community was there with us. In Detroit, people stood up, came and supported us, and gave us a voice. And so that was a way of saying in Detroit that, you know, Asian Americans are somebody. But to the rest of the country, to the rest of America, we still had to fight a lot of things. There were, you know, we had to fight in the progressive community because people said, well, you know, Asian Americans are really not protected by civil rights law. So if you want to have a civil rights case, you know, forget it. Asian Americans, who are you anyway? You don't experience racism, right? The so-called model minority racist myth was still going on then. And so that was some of the things we had to fight for. But then we got word that the community here in San Francisco, and so I, you know, Mabel, Norman, Henry, my brother Hoyt, and my wife, Leah Shigemura, who was with the JACL national office back then, and many other people were part of saying, you know what, San Francisco being the oldest, biggest Chinatown and the Asian community out here was going to do something, and that the Reverend Jesse Jackson was going to be there to call out the anti-Asian hate and to support our Asian community. And so I, as one of the activists in Detroit, and Lily Chin came out to San Francisco, here to Cameron House, this place of liberation against human trafficking. We came here on June 1st, 1984, and the Reverend Jackson said to us, you Asian Americans, you are somebody. And he was the first national leader in the whole country of any race to stand up and say, Asian Americans count. Asian Americans matter. Reverend Jackson, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. And that meant everything to our movement. That meant we got national attention. We were put on the national map because Reverend Jackson said, you are somebody. And Asian Americans, and I know there are a lot of faith leaders here, we had the support of the ecumenical gathering in Detroit, but it took work too. You know, it took work to bring together all of the different churches from the different faiths and different races, but that work led to a national movement. And it was the Reverend Jackson who stood up and said to all of us that we as Asian Americans could say, I am somebody. And today, you know, one of the lessons we learned from the Vincent Chin case was we had to over and over again say that we are Americans, we are here, we count, we should be covered by American law, why not? But it was really Reverend Jackson who made it possible for us. So I just want to thank Reverend Jackson and the whole community here and just say, in today's anti-Asian hate, we still all need to come together. We need to do that work to come together, to take that as one of the lessons from the Vincent Chin case, to say we are somebody, we stand up against hate against any group, and that's what we learned, and the lessons we took from Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push and what we try to carry forward today. So thank you very much for being here at this reunion.
Give it up for Helen Zia. And before we bring up, you don't want to hear no more speeches, right? You want to hear from Reverend Jackson. And he wants to be down home with the people, so he's going to move over here. I just needed to remind our local church folks, we built a movement for Asian American churches and caucuses, every denomination. We acted hard and fast, right, Mark? Okay, anyway. I'm proud of our church community that a lot of people didn't know. We went to every national denomination, and they listened to us, and maybe for our pastors, they've never done that before. But right now, I want to say some love for Pastor Bryant. No.
Well, it is so good to have this moment to bring on our leader, our visionary, the voice of the one that continues to give hope to all of us. Let me just say, though, before he comes, and Mabel is going to also help me with this introduction, I was looking at these pictures, Reverend Jackson, of you nearly 4 decades ago when you came to Chinatown and Justice for Vincent Chin signs and the gatherings that were happening. And I noticed this one to my right, Reverend Norman, this one right here next to you, the gathering was right here at Cameron House. This is where you came, Reverend, to speak to the community, to give them hope. So thank you for coming back again. And not only is Cameron House here, but we have members of the public housing community, the residents, the staff, and all of you that are here, because you understand having someone like Reverend Jackson speak gives all of us hope. And so, Mabel, why don't you come on up and help us bring Reverend Jackson to the spot. And we're going to have him because we want him sitting right here in between Vincent Chin and George Floyd for pictures, as well as for you all to be able to see him well and for him to enjoy his moment with you. But we're going to have Mabel Teng give an introduction that she's done so many times, including at the Democratic Convention. I'm just so proud to know you. You make me feel like I know someone real important and famous in my life. Come, you all show your love to Mabel Teng, please.
Pastor Bryant, Reverend, when you asked me to introduce you and to nominate you 1984 at the San Francisco Democratic National Convention, I was so overwhelmed. I was a young girl. I really didn't know what I was doing. I had so much to learn from you, and I continue to learn from you. When you came to Cameron House, 1984, when you embraced Lily Chin, we felt your love. We felt you embraced us all. When you put your arms around Mrs. Lily Chin, we felt you empowered us to make change. You have always said that you, each one of you, have the power to make things happen. Whether it's African American youth shot in the back, whether it's Asian American elderly kicked in the face, it is our obligation to show up. We need to show up and work with those in the struggle. And that is the power of the Rainbow Coalition, and that is the legacy of the greatest unifier of this century. That is the conscience of this nation and our honorary citizen of Chinatown. Let's put our hands together. Welcome Reverend Jackson back to Chinatown. Chinatown is our home. Chinatown is his home. Welcome, Reverend Jackson. We love you. We love you with all our hearts because you taught us that we are all connected. We might look different. Our skin color may be different, but our oppression is the same and our message is the same.
Hello, Chinatown. I need a better mic. Good afternoon, my friends.
Good afternoon, Reverend.
You hear me? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me express my thanks and my delight. Real thanks to God for allowing me to come back here again. I've been on this battle, on this road for a long time. I've grown to know people and circumstances I never would have known had I not on the road traveling to meet people, really. We live in little silos. There's a lot of world out there for us to give it. I want to introduce first my partner, almost 40 years. We've traveled the nation, the world together, Japan and South Korea, as well as the Caribbean, all that. Bushwing said, give Bushwing a big hand. First, my thanks to the leadership of Cameron House for welcoming us again here today. Mabel Teng. Cindy Ng. Yeah. This is the point. I really want to express my thanks to you for, I really want to start a Rainbow Push Chinatown chapter. I think that we not just trying to have a Rainbow Push Asian American dimension of our work. You're too vast to be in the margins of American life. Half the world is Asian. Half of them are Chinese. God must have loved Chinese. He made so many of them. See, God must have loved Chinese. He made so many of them. You got the point? Now, I'm trying to make the case here is that in this area, you are 300,000. Those are the numbers. 5 million in California. 18 million in America. 18 million Asians. 18 million Asians in America. Canada beat the nation by 112,000 votes. Carter beat Ford by 1.7 million. See, we are the margin. We say we are the margin.
We are marked.
Of profit.
Profit.
And power.
And power.
But you can't do any of that unless you have a sense of who you are. Moses, raised, of course, in Pharaoh's house, and biblically speaking. And God told him, I want you to go and free your people. His first question was, who am I? It's separate. Who am I? He felt he had a superior power, an inferior complex. So Moses had superior power, with an inferiority complex. He couldn't move. He did not appreciate who he was and whose he was. Now, the big problem Moses had was not just telling Pharaoh, let Pharaoh go. Say Moses had a bigger problem than saying, Pharaoh, let my people go.
Let him go.
The people had to leave, let Pharaoh go. Change your mind about who you are and what role you're going to play in American life. And overcoming that complexity is very basic, it seems to me. 18 million Americans. Of Northern Virginia, the Vietnamese determined the winners of state elections. In Chicago and New York, here, we'll build a serious and strong Rainbow Push Asian connection. I want to introduce also Reverend Joseph Bryant, a man of great stature here in San Francisco. Where is your Bryant? He is our regional director. I'll make these observations for you today. Number one, we can make it if we try. Don't give up, don't let anybody break your spirit. We can make it if we try. We can make it if we try. Secondly, what makes us distinct, not just ethnicity, but our ethics. What makes us
distinct,
worthy,
and worthy.
Not just
ethnicity,
ethics.
It is values.
Some people in every group have character deficit disorders. So no one has the right. No one has the right. Expect much.
Expend much.
Give little.
Forgive little.
Have a character deficit disorder.
It results.
It says everything must, if it goes up, must come down. That's the way that doesn't apply to character. You go up here and you can stay up here. Now, weighted objects is the law of physics. That's different. See, character is not the law of physics.
The law of physics.
The law of God.
It's the law of God.
Second step is here. It seems to me that we talk about Vincent Chin and Emmett Till. As we relate, we must learn each other's history and see where it mixes, where it comes across. You must always have your whereas's before your therefores. Whereas Jewish people run from land to land, and some of them were killed in World War II. 6 million Jews were killed in World War II. 20 million Russians. Say World War II, In World War II, 55 million people killed.
55 million people killed.
55 million.
55 million.
55 million.
55 million.
60 of them were Jewish people who on the run and ended up going to those concentration camps, which everyone can really see. Therefore, we need a homeland. That's what Israel is all about. That's what therefore. Whereas Asian Americans have been here since 17th century. 770 years ago, you founded this organization. 9 years after slavery ended. Part of the same movement of liberation of people. You know the Chinese Exclusion Act. What led up to the act? The violence that occurred before the act. People look a certain kind of way. And we went through the same period of apartheid together. And so now we stand firm. And when they killed our baby, it touched something deep in us. I thought about Vincent Chin, I thought about his mother and Emmett Till's mother. These women deserve much credit. Bringing these young giants into the world and then taking care of them. Mrs. Till told her that Emmett had been lynched. They beat him up and tied weights to his ankles and put him in the bottom of the river. His watermark, his face was all defaced. They didn't want to open the casket. Well, see my baby. I want you to see it. When people saw Emmett Till's body, and 100,000 people were transformed. That's what before and after Emmett Till. That's water. In many ways, life is before and after Emmett Till. As Mrs. Parks was, Mrs. Parks, given what you know how dangerous it is in the South, you chose not to go to the back of the bus. Now, she was not, as they say, a washerwoman. She was an erudite lady who was literate. She taught literacy in the Black Belt of Alabama. She was not just, she tired one day and he was hurting and she didn't get up off the bus. No, she meant to do that. She used to meet with a guy named Reverend Attorney Fred Bray every Wednesday. See how they're going to test the 54 decision. Was it valid? So she meant to sit down that day. She part of the stereotype. She said, Mrs. Parks,
Miss Parks
literate.
was literate.
She had intentions.
She had intentions
Changes the law.
to change the law.
I asked Mrs. Parks, I said, you know, you could have been beaten on the bus. You could have been thrown off. Three other women on the bus, they did get off the bus. And they got out. She said, I thought about Emmett Till, I couldn't go back. I couldn't go. Many of us think of Vincent Chin, but we can't go back. So we think of Vincent Chin. We think of Vincent Chin. We can't go back.
Came on.
Beat that boy to death with them sticks and all that, all the workers. So we thought it was Japanese. What the hell? I mean, but the Japanese should not be killed on the streets either. So Vietnamese, we're all people, we're all God, so we're all God's children. So I want us to think through that. The thing that I want to give you is there's a wall. Outside that wall, there's rumblings. And you hear rumors, they may come and hurt you. They may displace you in the labor force. Who are labor force? Well, it seems to me that behind the wall is ignorance of what's over here. Fear, hatred, if I say ignorance, fear, hatred, violence.
Lies.
That's how on this side, you're equally ignorant. We're equally ignorant, and scared, and hateful,
and violent.
Now, so we must bring the walls down. Then we see each other as we are. You look at the basketball games, it's playoff season now, football as it were. Well, what's whites and blacks from disparate parts of America get together on the football field and they embrace and they love each other. The reason that is the rules, fair rules.
Fair rules
matter. Fair rules matter. You're German, it's fair rules matter. The playing field is even. Rules are public. Rules are clear, referees are fair, and the score is transparent. We can all win. So whenever playing field
the playing field is even.
Rules are public.
Rules are public.
Goals are clear.
Goals are clear.
Referees are fair.
Referees are fair.
Scores transparent.
Scores transparent.
We can all win.
We can all win.
Last night the Clippers played Utah last night, right? And it goes with Kawhi Leonard hurt. There was a cinch game for Utah. But the baskets were the same distance apart, the same circumference for the one ball, out of bounds, you had to turn the ball over. You're playing by the same, say, the underdog can win. The rules are fair.
If the rules are fair.
The big fact in President Obama's victory was rules. One thing we did with Bush Wing and those who were running the campaign is that in 1984, we got nearly 4 million new voters, 400 delegates. What happened? Well, 35% was the threshold to be a delegate. Most people could not put that kind of money to run for a delegate. We looked at 15. Also in 84, you had one to take all. If I get 80, if I get 49, you get 51, you get all. My delegates don't want to be with you. So we fought for proportionality. That means simply as this. You run, you get your share. So Hillary won California, and Ohio, Texas, and Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, and New York. She, by the 84 rule, she'd have been the runner. Proportionality, where everybody counted, everybody, Barack won, because say fair rules make a difference.
Matters.
So part of our issue here is how do we fight for fair rules? Well, we fight in coalition. How can I put this? If you understand coalition, you understand where our interests are. Our interests must come together. I think about people ripped off in time because that was the difference. The press said it was computers. Yeah, computers and all that, but the rules say it's effort. And excellence. Effort. And excellence. Matter. Inheritance. Matters more. You inherit poverty, you tend to recycle poverty. Inheritance and access mean more than effort. See, working hard really matters. We were fighting the Rainbow to get all the dealerships, black people in Harlem, owning a Cadillac dealership. Your Motors said they can't give it to us because the territory had been let to whites. Territories and all those dealerships were let before we even had the right to get dealerships. So they finally worked out a deal. Mr. Potemkin controls New York, Southern New York, Northern New Jersey, a Chevrolet dealership. What I noticed about that morning we came together is that you had the grandchildren, they were taking pictures and all that. There's a grandbaby who can neither speak, read, nor think. Born owning a dealership. Well, on seven dealerships, as a matter of fact. So effort and excellence matters. Inheritance and access matters more. So we fight to position ourselves to leave our children something other than the misery and that. You have every reason to be proud people. We've come to so much against such odds, and there's this anti-Asian bashing, anti-black bashing, anti-Semitic bashing, because people who fight us like ignorant, say ignorant, scared, ignorance, fear, hatred, violence. All you do somebody, an old lady, Asian lady, beat up last night in New York, I think it was, on the street, just. That's sick. That's sick. Attacking people just because of their color and they look is sick. Now, I want to make this point kind of clear because if we understand that when walls come down, we get better. Walls come down, get better.
We get better.
We measure each other.
We can place together.
By character. Not by color. Ethics. Not just ethnicity. We all get better. Now, the aha of the same must be you must believe you can make it. I asked Bush, how many Asians in California? 5 million. It's a lot of people, y'all. In this area, 300,000. In America, 18 million people. 18 million Asians, but with clarity, you determine every national election. You have the power to have, and then we record less. In 1965, blacks got the right to vote first time in 100 years. So blacks got the right to vote. Talk to me. Blacks got the right to vote. Talk to me. Blacks got the right to vote. 1965. White women in the South can serve on juries. You hear about no women politicians until we got the right to vote. 18-year-olds who served in Vietnam could not vote. Couldn't vote on college campuses. Native Americans couldn't vote. You couldn't vote bilingually. Say when blacks, white women, 18-year-olds, college campuses,
On campuses.
Native Americans,
In America.
Digital Americans. That was a new majority. The new majority is already here. Talk to me. The new majority is already here. You've got this confidence crisis. You got 5 million people and afraid to have a press conference. We must be driven by fear. Say love conquers fear, and cast out doubt. Love conquers fear.
Long conquers fear.
Cast out doubt.
And cast out doubt.
Now, what I want our children to have a sense of is there's somebodyness, potential. There are several definitions of Asian Americans. One, a lot of them. Two, they're quiet, peaceful, get along. Our strength is not in piety, it's in power. Power is when we pool our efforts together. So now, if you look at that combination, see, one identity is your labor identity, working people. Right to vote, right to organize is a key part of that. Another identity may be geography, where you're from in the world, your parents are from in the world. That's a moral identity. Say, I am somebody. Now, what happened was, I was in Washington, D.C. Dr. King was killed in April. Robert Kennedy killed in June. And we were in a loss. We kept going to Washington to do the poor people's campaign to feed the hungry, wipe out poverty, a war against poverty. Dr. King was fine when he got killed. Well, what happened then was, in the camp, Dr. King gone and Robert Kennedy gone, why not turn his back on us? We had no place to go. And so I used to go in the back of a truck every morning as the mayor of Red Redemption City, challenge and inspire the people. This particular morning, it was raining, and 2 men died from a hepatitis in the camp. Despair bounded. I didn't know what to say to them. I didn't know what to say. I read a book by Dr. Howard Thurman, who lived here and died here. Howard Thurman wrote a book called Jesus and the Disinherited. He said, when your back is against the wall,
When your back is against the wall.
and you reduce
to
virtually nothingness. Your back is against the wall. You can still God's child. You're still somebody. People matter. Persons matter. Say, I am somebody. I am somebody. I matter. Never neglect me. I am somebody. My mind is a pearl. I can do anything in the world. I am somebody. Red and yellow. Brown, black, and white. We're all precious. In God's sight. The only reason to look down on somebody is stop and lift them up. I am somebody. Down with dope. Up with hope. Down with dope. Up with hope. Not my aptitude. My attitude.
It's my attitude.
Turn my altitude. It is not. Aptitude, attitude. Now, this is the point I want to make with you before we go to engage in conversation here. I really want you to have a strong Rainbow Push Coalition in Chinatown. We're going to find out where the other agents are in America. We're going to mobilize them. And if we come alive, nothing can stop us. Say no grave.
No grave.
No hold our body down.
No body down.
We can stop men from crucifying Chin, but we turn crucifixion into a resurrection. So his death makes us live.
Yes, sir.
Emmett Till's death makes us live. So we cannot stop men.
We cannot stop
Crucifying Jesus.
crucifying Jesus.
You cannot stop God.
We cannot stop God.
Resurrecting him.
Resurrecting him.
It's a process, right?
It's a process.
So we go on the strength of martyrs. I want you to, when you hear this, I want you to join Rainbow Push Coalition. RainbowPush.org, RainbowPush.org. Well, here Joe can talk about it in more detail. But we need to have a strong presence in California, in this city. The good thing I love about Ms. Breed, I remember when Doris Waldo was talking about you had to have 55% blacks to have a seat in the legislature. Blacks in San Francisco are 4%. She's the mayor. So you build coalitions, shared interests, you have power.
We have power.
They're going to make a presentation to you.
Okay, Brooke.
Okay?
Who's in charge of me?
All right.
But you're not still in charge of me. Anyhow, my point is that we can make it if we have an attitude. Every high school senior, 18 by November, can register and vote now. Every high school senior, 18 years of age,
18 years of age.
will be 18 by November.
Or 18 by November.
Register and vote.
Register to vote.
Right now.
Right now.
Part of the ritual should be diploma in one hand, voter card in the other. You come into citizenship. You've been in too long. We say we've been in too long.
Waited too long.
Too many of us.
Too many of us.
Be in the margins.
45
We have intellect, character,
Character.
and the will to fight. Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope. Keep. Don't give up. Keep hope alive. Never surrender. Keep hope. Love you guys.
Reverend Jackson, there's a presentation from the Board of Supervisors for you, Reverend Jackson.
Reverend Jackson, I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Aaron Peskin, who has represented this community, Chinatown, on and off for over 20 years. And as a legislative aide for him who grew up in this neighborhood, we just want to thank you for inspiring all of us today and also sharing your power and knowledge, especially in front of our young people. It is the future that you have paved the way for young people of color like myself and those who sit here that we're able to do this work and continue the movement of the Rainbow Push movement that you have built it. So thank you so much.
All right, somebody gonna hit it? We got some presentations for you. We had to have a lion dance for you. a very special presentation, a scroll to give to Reverend Jackson from Cameron House. Come, Helen Tong. Mike, Scott, over here. Right. Wow.
Wow.
Let's say.
Welcome to the Honorable Jackson. That's what the lion said. The scroll says, to unite and fight together.
Solidarity in the struggle. All right. Right after this, we're going to take some pictures. So all the residents, different groups, take pictures. All right.
Norman, come on over here, Reverend.
This lion says.
Thank you, Cameron House Lion Dancers. Woo! Good luck. All the love for Reverend Jesse Jackson coming all the way to Chinatown. Ow! Yeah. Okay, can we take some pictures now? Which one?
We are going to. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful job.
Thanks, Corey, Lorene.
And we want to thank Cameron House for your kindness. We want to thank the residents that have come to be a part of the gathering. Come on, let's give it up for them, the residents that came from public housing. Reverend Jackson, along with our National Field Director, Bishop Tavis Grant. Bishop Grant, would you just wave at everyone? They have been going around the country, working with public housing units around the country in various cities to try to fight for the rights of those who live in public housing, to remind them that they are somebody too. Give them a hand, give them a hand. And I just want to again say thank you to Reverend Jackson for what he has said today, because what he has shared is that we are going to begin a very special chapter of the Rainbow Push Coalition right here in Chinatown, San Francisco. And so we are excited, and the captain of the chapter is going to be none other than Reverend Norman Fong. You know that, right? But he wants to launch this initiative to support our Asian brothers and sisters around the country. But because his heart is right here in this city, in this community, he wants to do this here right now and begin to launch this here first. And then we're going to spread it around to other cities. But San Francisco is going to set the trail, because you all are special to Reverend Jackson. Give it up for yourselves.
Yeah.
He asked you to join Rainbow Push. So to all the young people, you have cell phones, right? You've got your smart devices. Thank you, you had them on silent. Now you can take them out, because you're going to join Rainbow Push right now. You're going to make sure that you get your information in the database. And for everyone else that does things by technology, take out your smartphone and you're going to text. And the number is, like you type in your phone number, 41444. That's why you write your phone number. If you're going to text somebody, it's usually, 415 blah, 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 blah. So we're going to ask you to just write in that space 41444 and then text the word push. Real easy to remember. Where you would put your text message or your OMGs and your LOLs, put word push right there. So you're going to text the word push, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Now, for everyone else that wants to do it in a more traditional way, we have envelopes. They're coming now with the envelopes. If you would like an envelope, if you aren't able to text it and figure it out on your smartphone, we have people coming around with envelopes, and you can join Rainbow Push today. We want you to become a member. We want you in the database. We want to be able to send you information, messages about Reverend Jackson's work around the world, his weekly column, updates on the work here in Silicon Valley, as well as the work in Chicago and around the country. More than anything, thank you for your love. Thank you for bringing him back. And thank you for helping us keep hope alive. Reverend?
Thank you. Let me say that I was jailed July 16, 1960 in the library. October 8th, I'll be 80 years old this year, 80. October 8th, but then you text that too. Yeah. We'll do something out here. We do it in LA every year. We do something up here this year in Chinatown, San Francisco. Say, I'll be 80 years old. And I thank God for allowing me to be a long distance runner and telling our story.
80 years old in October. 80
October.
Years old.
Yeah. Well, the Bible because, Moses started preaching at 80. Mandela was 80 years old as president of South Africa and married that year. So 80 is a name.
It's a name.
80 is evidence
Nevertheless,
of God's holding power.
God's holding power.
Love you guys.
Thank you, Reverend.